All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with a forlorn Drew Dinsick. We'll talk about college basketball, unfortunately at length for you, Drew, and then we'll talk some NBA too. But how was your weekend? And how were the results?
Yeah, March Sadness. It's been a long time since I've had a month as bad as March is shaping up. March 2024 is going to go down as a very red number, and I don't think there's anything that I could do to save it at this point. Got into a couple high stakes Calcuttas. You won't believe it, Jay. I had Auburn. I had St. Mary's. I had Florida. I had Kentucky. And literally everything on Friday that happened, I was just like watching a car accident, and I was like, "Oh my god, I guess this is how this goes." Because if you're in like a high stakes pool for college basketball, it's things are solved largely. Like probabilities are solved. You're playing against your pool, and you're hoping to run good. And I am running very poorly. And the NBA is not helping. There's some results coming in that really have not helped my portfolio, I got to tell you. So this is going to be a bloody month of March here, 2024 for me. And I need to regroup and get back. Naomi Osaka went down today after playing phenomenally well yesterday. She was so good. She went off as a -250 favorite against Caro today, and she got beat. Yannick Sinner held on for dear life against Talon Greekspor, which I think is not a good sign that he's going to ultimately be able to go toe-to-toe with Carlos Alcaraz in a week's time. So
I've lost a lot of money on Talon Greekspor over the journey, randomly. One of those random throws, in the vein of the man who's actually cost me the most money. The player across both genders who's cost me the most money in tennis is Ons Jabeur. It's not even close. She operates in her own. She has her own galaxy at this point. There's the Milky Way, and then there's whatever Ons Jabeur is to my gambling losses. But on the men's side, it's Sebastian Baez. No one has cost me more dearly than Sebastian Baez. I really like his game. But cost me dearly.
Yeah. So everything I needed to happen in college basketball for money-making purposes has not happened. So I'm going to be licking my wounds here for the next week and change, I would say. I don't know, man. It's been a weird tournament. It's been a weird tournament. Like the chaos, and honestly, if you want to take a giant step back, the ACC is very good. And maybe was not given enough opportunities for teams in this tournament, as we are probably all four through to the Sweet 16 in flying colors. Like no doubters for all four of these teams. Honestly, I know NC State came through in overtime against Oakland, but you watch that NC State game against Texas Tech in the 11-6, you're like, oh no, there's a clear better team here, and it's NC State. And honestly, just in general, the ACC is looking quite strong. The SEC, the opposite of that. Although very still time left for the SEC to just again kind of jab me right in the eye if Texas A&M takes out Houston today. That would be the cherry on top of the Sunday that was the first weekend of March Madness for yours truly. I will tell you this though, I'm not superstitious. I'm only a little stitious. The karmic consequences of the SEC, particularly the guy at the top who was clamoring for, we need fewer small schools because they're not as good. And then his conference getting popped across the board. Yale takes down Harvard. Oakland takes down Kentucky. I feel like if there are basketball gods, they didn't love what the SEC commissioner had to say about smaller schools. So I guess karmically, it feels fair. It's been a weird one so far. The just in general, this round of 32 has been wildly chalky, like crazy chalky. Has the dog covered yet? We're still waiting, honestly. And that cuts both ways. There's less drama, there's less upsets, but we're gonna have really, really, really good teams matched up for the Sweet 16. So hopefully the product is going to be awesome.
Yeah, Well, as far as your own results go, I think we say this in Australia. We've been here so long that everything is now just blending together. But we say it swings and roundabouts, Drew, and you've just got to get in good, and the swings and roundabouts will take you to the right place.
Hey, speaking of Australia, the only things that have gone well for me this entire weekend happened in Australia, with Verstappen going down in the Australian Grand Prix, and the Sydney Swans just taking care of business. Like that team is a truck.
Yeah, they're an absolute juggernaut, and I think this is the third or the fourth time I've said this, but I'm just going to keep saying it, that the Swans should be the favourite to win the AFL Premiership, and they're not. They're intra-state rivals, Greater Western Sydney, are the favourites, and I don't think they should be. So the Sydney Swans should be the favourite. So go and bet that. Throw that into Ronald Acuna to win National League MVP. Yeah. All right. So I know you don't want to talk about college basketball, but we're going to talk about college basketball. I will say that I'm not a big college basketball better, not a big college football better, really, although that's ramped up a little bit. I will say that the college sports are the worst to go down on because it's not professional. And when it goes down, it can just look insipid. I will never forget this year, the UTSA Roadrunners. Now, it didn't actually matter in the end because SMU won the conference running away. But at the time, I thought I really needed the UTSA Roadrunners to beat SMU. I think they're up 5 with 5 minutes left. I'm not kidding you. I don't think they hit the rim in the final 5 minutes. I'm not sure they hit the rim. The only time they might have hit the rim before a garbage bucket with like 2 seconds left was when they bricked 2 free throws off the back iron. So that just doesn't happen in Warriors Timberwolves, which we'll talk about shortly. But let's talk about some of these college games. Illinois, Iowa State, which is a good one, Thursday in the Boston TD Garden. Iowa State 2.5-point favorites. 2 seed against the 3 seed Illinois, total 146.5. Do you have any lean on this one?
Yeah, I mean, riding Iowa State here, and need them. Need this one. And honestly, like, Iowa State's going to have to do it themselves, as UConn is currently just taking care of all of the business against Northwestern right now. And yeah, I think this is it's a fun matchup. Illinois is somewhat fatally flawed. I think Iowa State has one of the better defenses, if not the best defense of all teams remaining. Maybe them and Houston are sort of the true blue best defenses. My fare on this one is 3, so I'm pretty darn close, but I would lean Iowa State if I was to have a bet. I think ultimately, if there's any Illinois market support here, if this comes down to 2 or 1.5, then I would take a shot on the Cyclones. Otherwise, I'm just basically doubling down on a bet I'm already holding, which is Iowa State to get to the Final Four. They were good. There was really no wobble whatsoever from Iowa State to this point, and it was kind of an interesting. They had a weak first half against the Cougars, Washington State, in round of 32 before ultimately pulling away and winning by 11. And it's a good team. Like, there was some questions about whether they were overrated by market heading into this tournament, because their preseason prior was quick compared to a top 5 type of rating where they were at the end of the season. And I think ultimately they're proving to be as good as advertised. And I think Illinois has some issues, some problems, and Illinois has not necessarily been tested. The Morehead State first half was kind of, they were kind of frisky, but Illinois was clearly the class there. They put a hurting on Duquesne, and then I think this one's going to be an interesting matchup, because you are going strength on strength. Like, Illinois' offense is solid. Iowa State's defense is elite. So that's going to be kind of the name of the game here.
Yep. I need Illinois in this game. So
okay.
We'll be going head to head. You are due, though, Drew. So the due factor reigns supreme in this one. I don't like to be going against you there, but I need Illinois to go deep in this tournament. Let's go to the Midwest region. Number 3 seed Creighton against Tennessee. Tennessee have been darlings of sorts the past 2 months or so of the seasons. They soared past Alabama, much to my chagrin, in the SEC. The 2.5-point favorites here, total 143.5 on Friday. Any lean on this one?
Yeah, I'm not anywhere close to 143.5 here. This looks like a very solid underlook. I think ultimately Creighton, while they have a signature that kind of leans into their offense, 11th best offensive efficiency in the country. They're outstanding, effective field goal percentage. However, they don't get to the line effectively well. They don't offensive rebound well, and they cannot create extra possessions with turnovers, which means this has all of the makeup of being a sloggy type of game, right? Tennessee is not going to have efficient offense from wire to wire here. There's going to be some times where things look a little bit creaky for them. And I think ultimately the Tennessee defense is elite and is going to be able to put a little bit of a handcuff on Creighton here. And yeah, if Creighton is like trying to find their offense and ultimately just can't get free points at the free throw line, can't get free points off turnovers, then I don't think this one's going to sniff 144. So I like under here quite a lot.
Okay, under is the play. Let's go to the South. Your beloved NC State, 11 seed against 2 seed Marquette. Marquette, 6.5-point favorites. Total is 150.5 on Friday in Dallas, the American Airlines Center. Any play on this one?
Yeah, so I thought NC State was going to be a little bit of a happy to be here type of team after winning the ACC, and that's not the case. Like they're just like literally every player is just playing their best basketball right now. They have a second wave of players that I didn't even know was as good as they were. A couple of transfers in particular who have been just absolutely showing out so far in this tournament. And I think NC State needs to be treated as a true blue contender. Marquette, on the other hand, is dealing with a couple of issues that I think could ultimately handicap them in this particular matchup. And I think this is probably dog or pass. NC State, if you are specifically rating them based on what you've seen from them in the last, like a heat index type of rating, as opposed to a season long, these teams are about the same. And I think ultimately that's kind of, this is a coin flippy type of game. And I'm not in any way expecting North Carolina State to, fail to show up here. There is some general, kind of interesting wrinkles as this is, a matchup between, team and Marquette who, I think at least is, top 10 talented across the board, but really does not have size going up against this emerging unit that is fundamentally big, right? If you watched any of Texas Tech, NC State, it was super physical. Like the NC State was just mobbing them, and it was not legally, but like they're big, they're strong, like they have bodies, and they really put a hurting on Texas Tech, which was a shock. And then they turned around and did it against Oakland, where it was just a super physical game. I don't think Marquette's necessarily built that way, so I'm leaning pretty strongly in the direction of just NC State money line here, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay, let's go to back to the Midwest. Purdue, 1 seed. They are the 3rd favorite to win the national championship, plus 600. They take on Gonzaga, 5 seed. Purdue, 4.5-point favorites, total 154.5. What have you got here?
Yeah, so the upset of Purdue as a 1 seed against the 16 last year feels like ancient history. This effectively same Purdue team is playing extremely well, and the competition has been weak, and Gonzaga is a huge step up. Gonzaga second half against Kansas was about as good as Gonzaga's played all season, and I think if they can carry that form into this contest, they have a very real puncher's chance. But I think Purdue is a little bit overlooked by the market coming into this tournament because they tend to flame out, and we kind of consistently take shots at them because their turnover defense is so poor. Like they do not create extra possessions with the way that they defend. However, they're a truly elite offensive rebounding has made up for that pretty clearly. And if you did not know, and I was just surprised by this myself, Purdue is the number 1 3-point shooting team in the country. which is shocking. Like that, you think of the way that traditionally Purdue plays basketball and the way that this team is constructed, and effectively the offense goes through Zach Edey. No, not really anymore. Like he is a hugely important piece, sure, but they have outstanding shooting, and ultimately, I think they're going to be a very, very, very tough out for whoever beats them, if anyone beats them. Like I'm kind of coming around to Purdue might just win this year. They might be the best. So many good teams remain that it's going to be we're going to get ones and twos, I feel like, in the Final Four pretty much across the board. And I think that's going to make those games really, really interesting. But Purdue absolutely deserves a seat at the table as among the best in the country. And I think 4.5 is not enough to really get my blood up for Gonzaga here.
Okay. Well, another one of the best teams in the country, Arizona, play Clemson on Thursday, Crypto.com Arena. The opener looks like Arizona 6.5. That's getting backed towards 7. Who do you like on the spread there?
Yeah, lean Arizona, but it is very weak. Clemson was one of the more aggressively bet against in the opening round against New Mexico. I didn't necessarily understand it, but I was like, okay, interesting. And it felt like they had a little bit of locker room mojo. Nobody believes in us but us kind of effort against New Mexico. It was impressive. And then what they did against Baylor, particularly in the first half today, I thought was pretty darn impressive. So I don't know that Clemson can get a win against Arizona. The talent disparity is notable. However, Arizona is definitely, I think, a little flattered by the results we've seen through 2 rounds. I don't know that I'm like dying to get involved with this team to make any kind of a deeper run than, getting to the Elite 8 here. So Arizona likely wins. I get why the market is backing them in this spot because Clemson's, a little bit overmatched from a talent perspective. But, that said, Arizona is a little bit can't be trusted, I think.
Okay. Don't trust Arizona. Well, Drew, we're closing on opening day, but it's never too late to squeeze in another draft. So for those cramming before the regular season begins, grab your Roto-World Baseball Draft Guide. It's loaded with comprehensive positional rankings, projections, and player profiles to ensure your draft is a success. Visit NBCSports.com/draft guide and use code BASEBALL24 to get 10% off at checkout. All right, let's cycle around the National Basketball Association a little bit, talk about some of these weekend results. Just firstly, what was your biggest, takeaway out of the weekend?
Magic really, I needed them to beat the Kings yesterday.
Oh, they should have. They got absolutely.
God, that was a tough one, man.
That was one of the worst touch fouls. Like it's so not only is it not a foul, but just like the temporal disconnect between just waiting to see if Fox would go back across half court to call the foul. It's like that's 10 out of 10 egregious.
Yeah. And then Miami
they can't score. Is the other issue. It is so tough for them. We really need Cole Anthony on the floor. It's like that's not bad.
That's not good. I like in general, I'm not expecting the Magic to do anything special in the playoffs, but I really want them to win the Southeast. And the Magic are the Heat are playing now. This is now they're at full strength. They were incredible today in the first half against the Cavs, to the point where the Cavs basically just threw their hands up and said, okay, well, we'll just take the loss. Let's move on. Weak effort from the Cavs in every regard there. I think the East is it's going to get interesting because now that the Bucks are playing kind of closer to the ceiling in terms of the expectation of this unit, people are going to start buying into them as realistic contenders in the East. As we are currently recording, they just wrapped up a throttling of the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll get to the West in a second, but does not really feel like the Thunder are taking the this portion of the season as seriously as they had taken every other part of the season. And maybe there are some warning signs to be taken away from this, but the Bucks were incredible today. Really tough to find any issues, holes whatsoever with their game right now. And Chris Middleton's not even playing very well, and it doesn't matter. Giannis and Dame in general and really the Dame and Brook Lopez kind of two-man game is pretty fun to watch on offense in particular. And I think people are going to start talking themselves into the Bucks a little bit, which is a sell sign for me. But the top of the West is really what I think kind of is holding most attention. And, depending on the outcome of this Golden State Minnesota game, which we may get while we're recording, it feels like the Nuggets are going to ultimately walk with the one. I was prepared to kind of really, try to make sense out of the prices in the Northwestern Division, where you could have gotten the Thunder in the plus 250 range, which just felt absurd. Plus 275. Like, prior to this result against the Bucks, it was just like, how, what, who made, like, what, like, really, people don't believe that the Thunder can continue to play well and win down the stretch. The Nuggets are this big of a favorite because, like, the Nuggets aren't especially playing impressively well. Like, we're a week removed from a pretty glaring loss to the Mavericks. So it's, I was prepared to make a case for the Thunder, and it just doesn't feel like this is going to be a thing. It's just the Nuggets, everything's breaking in their favor, and as with this particular loss counted for the Thunder, it's tough to see how how the Nuggets don't walk with the West.
It's just difficult because the schedule is so lopsided in the Nuggets' favor from here. Like they're kind of in the box seat anyway, and they just have these gimme games where they opened 17-point favorites against Memphis, and the line dropped because Jokic and Murray are questionable, but they just have all these layups on the schedule. And meanwhile, OKC in a bit over a week, they have like a 3rd and 4 nights road back-to-back against the rested Celtics team in Boston. Like they're going to be like 8.5, 9-point dogs in that game at this point. So I think they are in some trouble. The other thing, and you mentioned it, is just that even though they've been pulling out wins against bad teams, there has been signs that they are leaking oil a bit, where I think that they are a little bit they might be running out of steam somewhat. And I think there's a red flag too. Just Shea really struggled against the Bucks, where it didn't seem like he had much of a plan. It seemed like he was having issues with Milwaukee's length. And the thing about Milwaukee is that they've been this kind of Keystone Cops team for segments of the season, and then they get right, and everyone's afraid of them. And then they got, it wasn't that long ago, they got absolutely blown out by the Lakers and the Kings back to back. Really bad loss.
Non-competes. Yeah.
And now everyone's back to, they're the real deal and Boston's in trouble. Like, I'm not sure Boston's in trouble. But the thing is with the Bucks is that when Middleton is out there and when they have their 4 guys, they're incredibly good. Those 4 guys on the court, can't recall the number off the top of my head, but it's like plus 16 net rating or something absurd when those 4 guys are there. It's just a drop off from the 4th guy to the 5th and the 6th and the 7th is just so pronounced. Whereas that, Boston go 6 deep in really good players. And even if Horford isn't at that level anymore, he's still better than whoever Milwaukee's 5th best player is, might be Malik Beasley. Crowder is, I think, done. Pat Bev is done as an offensive player, still good defensively, but they just don't have the depth. But I still think they are pretty clearly now the 2nd best team in the East for whatever it's worth.
Yeah. Tough to say, though, that they have more than a win or 2 against Boston, at least still currently. And which makes me think like there is going to be a sell high if there's some public like, whoa, we gotta race. The Bucks are coming. No, selling that in pretty much every way against the Celtics personally. I guess the other thing to mention about the NBA, just real quick on a recap, Brandon Ingram getting hurt is bad for the Pelicans. He, I think, is their most important player, even though, Zion obviously gets the headlines. Ingram was quietly one of the huge reasons that this team was so steady and so good. And he's going to miss a couple weeks now. So you can see the Pelicans droop a bit. I think that makes that division race interesting with the Mavs playing as well as they're playing right now. Somehow, some way the Kings keep winning. This Kings team is just going to haunt me. I have a huge bet on them to miss the playoffs, and I feel like they're just going to get the 6th seed, and I'm going to be like, how?
Yeah, they're going to miss Kevin Herter as well, though.
Yeah.
So that is a ray of light. But I mean, they just keep on pulling out these wins. Like they had no right to win that game against the Magic after how the last few minutes was unfolding. They had no right to beat the Spurs and the Grizzlies and the Wolves. Those games were all like done the other way, and they've somehow pulled them out. And our man Malik Monk, who was cheering against for a good month, now I think the race is it's not over, but it's trending towards over. And then he serves up 0 for 11, 0 points, minus 22, and the win. Just kind of slightly keep the door ajar. And my man Norm Powell puts up 20 points on 7-11 shooting, 3 of 5 from deep in an atrocious loss to Philadelphia. But he still got his up to 14 points per game on 63% true shooting. So if they can close hot, maybe he can become a race again, but not really holding my breath on that one. All right, the Premier League race is tightening, Drew, and one of the most important matches of the season is this Sunday when Erling Haaland and Man City take on Arsenal as the Gunners try to claim their first title in 20 years. It's been 20 years since they won the title, which is depressing to say out loud. But watch the matchup at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on Sunday, only on NBC and Peacock.
Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday, Jay. Even though it was 20 years ago. We got to twist the arms of production and get a soccer show on the slate this week.
Sure.
I was kicking around some of the Euro prices. Those are starting to firm a little bit now with international break. Some of the Euro prices got starting to get a little bit of attention. Yep. Don't really agree with these, and I think now is a good time to check in on a bunch of soccer futures markets. So yeah,
sure. We're not going to be that solid this time at this point. So certainly we can chat that. All right, let's talk Monday NBA slate. Before we get to that, though, is there anything on the board that tickles your fancy? There's not a great deal of marquee matchups, I have to say. Just looking through, you'd say probably the marquee matchup is Indiana at the Clippers. That's the only one that really jumps out as like two teams with a good chunk at stake. But is there anything on the board that you like?
Yeah, there's a couple. I don't think Atlanta should be getting 11.5 at home to Boston. Boston's in a little bit of a tricky spot schedule-wise as they are kind of at the tail end of a difficult grind. This is a team that is starting to get a little tie-tie, and I think Atlanta is in a decent shot to at least give us a competitive effort here, if not, challenge for a win. So I'm going to take the 11.5 points with Atlanta. I see pretty decent advantages, interestingly enough, for the road teams. Both Charlotte and Dallas have huge rest advantages on the road, which is kind of unusual. And obviously that's because you had back-to-backs for the teams that are at home, and they both happen to have also traveled, which is interesting. So I think that kind of neutralizes things a bit for taking a shot on Charlotte to stay competitive against Cleveland, and then certainly Dallas being able to just tub thump the Jazz seems reasonable. So Jazz not really playing competitive basketball right now. So yeah, Dallas should be able to put that one away pretty comfortably. The other kind of major interesting game, and like don't get me wrong, my confidence is not shaken. Ultimately, I think there's still a chance that the Kings don't make the playoffs, but they got a pretty darn good matchup against Philadelphia. This is a great spot. Really good spot for the Kings here. And, the market knows it. Like, there's a premium to back Sacramento here as 9-point favorites. But if Philadelphia shows up and gives you an honest effort after what you saw from them today, which was very impressive, then hat tip to them. But I think ultimately this is probably a spot to look for some Kings. I'm going to watch that game pretty closely and maybe just wait for a live entry if Philadelphia looks like they're playing well early and then they ultimately run out of gas. So that one's maybe more of a live spot than it is lay 9 with the Kings pre-flop. So, that's about it. I mean, you're right, though. It's not a very compelling slate, but we are kind of in an interesting situation where rest is kind of wildly imbalanced across the association right now. And you have a couple of home teams in particular that are at a rest disadvantage, which is unusual.
Yep. I don't understand why I get your point about the schedule spot, and the Sixers are playing. This will be third game in 4 nights on a road trip,
It's a bad one.
back to back against a rested Kings team. But like, it's 9.5 some spots. That is a lot of points for the Kings to be giving the Sixers. And I think also the fact that, so yes, the Sixers are on a back to back, but they played an afternoon game, and it's going to be a night game on Monday. It's not like there's a lot of travel going from Los Angeles to Sacramento, as you well know. And also the Kings did play on they played on Saturday. They were in Orlando, so they flew back from Orlando. So it's not like the Kings are on this 7-game homestand or whatever, and there's just a massive, travel is not a factor whatsoever. And I don't know, you add all of that up, and the Sixers were 9.5 point dogs in Phoenix at full strength, and that was without Tobias Harris. So I don't understand how this adds up to Sacramento 9.5. Yeah. And also Kyle Lowry and Nick Batum, they didn't play today. They were rested, so they're not part of that. Tyrese Maxey's not. He played 44 minutes today. They just decided, you're not coming out, Tyrese. We need this win. And I'm not sure Tyrese Maxey gets tired. He just seems to have an incredible engine. So I think he will be full go. Oubre looked like he got hurt. So yeah, Oubre might miss, and that's actually a pretty big deal for them. So that is one thing. Well, it's a big-ish deal for them. He's probably their third best player at this point. It's not ideal. But yeah, I can't. The Kings will miss Kevin Huerter as well. They have to play like the Chris Duarte game. And it's not a fun game to play. If you're Sacramento. So the other one that I was looking at, I'm not sure my beloved Chicago Bulls should be 12-point favorites over them.
That's a big number. That's a huge number.
Washington. Tyus Jones is out, which might be a problem. He might be the second, or he might be the third best player on the Wizards at this point. But Jordan Poole has turned the corner a little bit, averaging 18-5 in the month of March. Little 45% from the floor, 37% from three, 92% from the line. We forget, well, maybe we don't forget, but Jordan Poole 2 years ago, and he's only 24 years old, so it's not like he's 31 and he's crossed the Rubicon. 2 years ago, he was a 92nd percentile offensive player by EPM. He was an outlier good offensive player. And I don't understand how that could just disappear. So it would make sense that it would just kind of randomly come back. And he seems to have turned the corner a little bit. Had a couple of 30-point games this month now. He's still not a great player or anything, but I think that him being just a serviceable player, looking like, at least on offense, that does change the fortunes of the team a bit. And, still Kuzma, Denny Avdija is having a great season. It's not great, but the Bulls are really not good. And 12 points is a lot.
Yeah. Kuzma got the rug. He's not going to play, which is maybe some of this, but Denny's good. Poole, I guess your point is fair. The bottom is in on the Jordan Poole stock. I think we know where the bottom is, and it was sometime in early February. And he is playing. He's definitely playing better. Not like anywhere close to where he's getting compensated, but that's not really the point. I would say that Wizards are probably going to lose this game, but are they going to lose going away? Probably not. There's the Bulls have some issues. They're still playing a lot of Nikola Vucevic, man. And he's definitely
his third best player.
He's got his own set of issues in terms of how little he's living up to how he's being compensated. So Vucevic is definitely can be taken advantage of to a degree. So yeah, if the Wizards are competitive, I wouldn't be surprised. But there's going to be a lot of who's the backup for Kuzma? Kispert. There's gonna be a lot of Corey Kispert in this game, which I think hold on, hold your breath a little bit there. But it's a weird Monday, and the NBA just in general has what was the content I was listening to? Maybe it was Russillo's pod where he was talking to George Niang, and Niang was basically like he said it out loud, and I was like, oh. That's how these guys feel. He literally, I think he said, let's just fast forward these 13 games and get to the playoffs. And it's like, fast forward these 13 games, like you're talking about a month, like almost a month of the season, man. Like, yeah, like what's going on? Like, you really don't, this doesn't matter. Okay, fine. And it's a shame because, on a Monday after college basketball sucked all the air out of the room for the entire weekend, like, put a good product out there, get people excited about basketball, show them that, hey, you like college basketball? Well, watch better athletes doing more insane stuff, right? Like, this should be an opportunity to showcase your sport. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to watch every minute of it. Don't get me wrong, but I do wish there was some more compelling matchups to sink our teeth into. We got like 6 or 7 games with double-digit spreads. That's not good.
Yeah. To be fair, I didn't realize that Kuzma wasn't on the initial injury report they released. Looks like he got ruled out an hour ago, to your point. So that does shift it a little bit. But, I mean, the Bulls desperately tried to lose to the Blazers in Chicago.
They almost did it.
They were up 25, and then they were down 1 with 3 minutes left. It's completely insane. By the way, Steph Curry just scored 9 clutch points, which puts him 10 ahead of DeRozan again. His price has moved, like barely moved in the market. Like, that's pretty material. I think that should be a bigger adjustment.
Meanwhile, DeRozan's getting himself ejected. He's not even playing in the clutch.
I like DeRozan just deciding you're out, Jalen Green. He's gonna absolutely not clothesline you, but real good hip check. The worst thing about cheering Kobe White Most Improved Player is that you have to cheer Kobe White Most Improved Player and watch Chicago Bulls games. And it is not a pretty sight at all. I mean, the problem is they're so inoffensive. Like, they're not even bad. Like, it's not bad basketball. It's just it's just there. It's just there on the screen. It's like, all right, here's this -2 point differential team going at it each night.
Yeah.
They play hard, and they give it a crack, but there's just nothing going on, really.
I kind of feel like a fun market to set would be over under how many years in a row the Bulls are going to play in the play-in.
Yeah.
It's gonna be it's gonna be like 5 or 6. Like, they're kind of stuck right there in purgatory the way they're rostered.
Yeah. Listen, I don't care about the Chicago Bulls. I care about Kobe White. He needs to get out of this little slump that he's in at the moment. But he's got the Wizards, who are the worst defense in the league, and then he's got the Pacers and the Nets. And Hobie and Barclays Center cheering on Kobe on Friday night. But this is the time, Kobe. You got the 30th, the 25th, and the 20th ranked defenses. It is time to just score 26 points in a game. Just put up 26 and 5 and put this puppy to bed. Just last thing on awards, just before we close out, I think Mark Day now might be in a little bit of trouble because under scuffling to our earlier discussion. Just really bad loss to the Bucks to get blown out in that fashion. And when that, I think, compounded with the fact that they were already not looking quite as impressive. Shea hasn't had a proper Shea game in quite a while now, which effectively closes out MVP, I think. But if they continue to slide, and the Wolves won, so now like the Thunder are barely hanging on to the 2 seed. If they fall to the 3 and Denver runs away with the 1, which I think is going to happen, then I think if Jamal Mosley just gets a top 4 seed, I think he might win Coach of the Year. And that shift has kind of already happened, but that's the type of thing where he's got these 2 games coming up against the Warriors and the Clippers. And I think he's at a huge rest advantage for the Warriors game because they're playing on a back-to-back. They got to play Miami the night before, and Orlando's going to have like 4 days of rest going into that. If they win that, and then they win their next game, then all of a sudden they have a really nice schedule thing too, where their 3 last games of the season are Bucks, Philly, Bucks. I think there's a good chance the Bucks have the 2 seed wrapped up by then. So, you want the tough games at the back like that for Mosley. So I think that if he wins these next 2 and the Thunder start to scuffle a little, I think that Mosley getting a top 4 seed, possibly even a 3 seed, that's in play. If he gets just a top 4 seed and they win 49, 50 games after winning 34 last year and he just finishes a lot hotter than Dag now, I think he'd win.
Yeah. There's a little bit of Nick Sirianni Eagles 2 years ago vibes around Daigneault. Like if they finish with the stink on them because they are falling, it's going to be tougher to vote for him, even though what he has done has been by far the most impressive in terms of taking a team to the next level. When there's a stink on you at the end of the season, it can be problematic. And I think we know this. And yes, Jamal Mosley would be the beneficiary of that. 6-1 looks like a decent bet there. I would make his chances closer to something like 20%. He's definitely climbing right now, though. Yep. So it's maybe a little bit of meat on the bone there to get some Mosley. I think the interesting, I guess we need some. We're recording as this is happening, but Lou Dort came out of the game against the Bucks with a face nose. If that's like I can't believe we're saying this out loud. If Lou Dort is missing time for the Thunder, we got ourselves a problem.
Got a big person.
Yeah, he's like they're built in an interesting and awesome way, but they're also super fragile. Like Chet only works if Dort's on the floor, right? Like that's kind of huge. Like that they're so short, and this could get weird for the Thunder over the next week, and the MVP race is over. Dagano's candidacy for Coach of the Year could get weird.
Yep, no, I agree there. Certainly one to monitor very closely. If the Magic, because people are going to want to. Well, I don't really care about wanting to reward, but I just think that they're going to be a better story by the end of the season with momentum if they get a top 4 seed and the Thunder fall to 3, which I think is very much in play. So one to monitor. All right, we are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you tomorrow.